What's going on? What's happening? What's happening? Peace, 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 and power to everybody. This your girl Tiffany coming through here live in effect. So, as you heard, that sound was the sound of law and order. All right. So we gotta talk from the perspective of the real life law and order. Okay. And it's good that I had used this title for the name of the show, because I'm a big fan of Law and Order. I love watching the show, especially the Special Victim Unit. So I said, it's necessary for me to use this little bell sound.
This program contains subject matter and language that may be disturbing.
Yeah, I felt like it was very important for me to use the little bell sound. Dum dum. Yeah, to go ahead and proceed with this video. But let's go ahead and talk about I know you guys have heard, for those of you who have not been keeping up, or if you're not one of those people that like watching television or like looking at articles or anything like that, R.Kelly has been found guilty on all accounts. So I do have an article that I'll be presenting about the information. And then once I get done talking about the R.Kelly situation, as far as the article, then I'm going to read another article from New York Times about Black women's how the black women around R. Kelly's case feel about this conviction. All right, and then going from there, I'm going to get into the sociology of this, and then I'm going to use some book reference to kind of tie this into what R. Kelly intentions was and what he was doing the entire time. And then I'm going to make the comparison with not only R. Kelly, but we also going to bring in Polite as well, okay? Because we're going to incorporate him along with this subject, all right? So this is one of those special victim unit type of situation, all right? If you guys know about Law and Order, special victim unit, this is what it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and present the article from Chicago Tribune. All right, I hope you guys can see that article, but let me go ahead and read it to you. So in federal courtroom, far from his hometown, remnants of R. Kelly's superstardom evaporating and sweeping racketeering, sex crimes conviction. And then it says, Chicago-born R. Kelly sat nearly motionless in a federal courtroom in New York on Monday, surrounded by his attorneys, but looking very much alone. Gone was the superstardom and all the trappings that for years had come with it. The entourage of bodyguards and managers, the drivers and runners, the sycophants and hanger-ons, and most of all, the girls. What was left was Robert Sylvester Kelly, who was 54, dressed in a navy blue suit, some 800 miles from his hometown, staring straight ahead as he awaited a verdict that was years in the making. Moments later, the jury's decision was read in Judge Ann Donnelly's hushed fourth-floor courtroom. Guilty of racketeering, conspiracy, and 8 other counts alleging the singer used his organization to lure and trap girls, boys, and young women to satisfy his sexually predatory desires. The jury deliberated for about 9 hours beginning Friday before reaching the verdict in the case, which had attracted national media attention and played out over the past 6 weeks under strict security and COVID-19 protocols. In addition to the main count of racketeering, the jury found Kelly guilty on all 8 counts of violating the Mann Act, which prohibited travel over state lines for illegal sex. Kelly, one of the biggest music stars Chicago ever produced, faces everywhere from 10 years to life in prison when he when his sentence on May 4th, according to the U.S. Attorney Office in Brooklyn. All right. With pandemic rules in place, Kelly kept his face mask on and remained expressionless as the verdicts were read shortly after 2 p.m. Chicago time. As the jury filled out, Kelly stood and collapsed his hands in front of him. He whispered something to one of his lawyers before being led from the courtroom with his hands behind his back by a court security officer, and which they called him bailiff. Outside the courtroom, Kelly's lawyer, Devereaux Kennett, told reporters his team was disappointed with the verdict and would be exploring options for appeal. Another member of the defense team, attorney Thomas Fernella, tweeted out a statement saying the manner in which prosecutors' use of the federal racketeering statute, commonly referred to as RICO, against Kelly was an aberration. The RICO enterprise was based on a series of independent relationships and events the government patched together like different types of fabrics and passed it off as silk, Fernella wrote. Donnelly gave the defense until November 1st to file any post-trial motions. In a brief news conference in front of the courthouse Monday afternoon, acting U.S. Attorney Jacqueline Colasis said the jury had delivered a powerful message to men like R.Kelly that eventually their crimes will catch up to them. Today's verdict forever brands R.Kelly as a predator who used his fame and fortune to prey on the young, the vulnerable, and the voiceless for his own sexual gratification, Cassilis said. A predator who used his inner circle to ensnare underage girls, men, women for decades in a sordid web of sex abuse, degradation, and humiliation. Cassilis said to Kelly's victim that their voices were heard and justice was finally served. We hope that today's verdict brings some measure of comfort and closure to the victim, she said. All right, so I'm gonna read this last part, then I'm gonna talk. 6 months after the series aired, Kelly was charged with racketeering in the U.S. District Court in Brooklyn in July of 2019. The trial, which was delayed several times by the COVID-19 pandemic, got underway last month and featured testimony from some 50 witnesses, including a number of alleged victims who told the jury that Kelly manipulated and controlled them and forced them to have sex with him and others, often on videotape. Kelly's legal woes are not over with the verdict, however. He also faces a pending case in Chicago's federal courthouse where prosecutors allege he and 2 others fits his 2008 trial in Cook County, as well as 4 separate indictments alleging sexual abuse that are still pending at Chicago's Leeton Criminal Court building. Kelly also faces a solicitation case in state court in Minnesota. And it says, attorney Steve Greenberg, who along with his colleague Michael Leonard represent Kelly on his remaining Chicago cases, said they were terribly disappointed with Monday's verdict. Greenberg and Leonard withdrew from the New York case after a dramatic shakeup of the defense team earlier this year. We thought when we were handling it that we had a good chance of prevailing knowing what we knew about the evidence, he told the Tribune. Unfortunately, Robert made a choice to have other people handle it, and I leave it to others Monday morning quarterback that decision. Meanwhile, Monday's verdict could change the calculus significantly on the remaining cases against Kelly. Facing so much time in prison, Kelly could choose to plead on some or all of them instead of going to trial. Alternatively, prosecutors in the other jurisdictions may choose to drop some or all of the other charges. Another possibility would be for the prosecutors in New York to try to use some of the allegation in other jurisdictions to get stiffer prison sentence, effectively turn his sentencing hearing next year into a mini trial on the various other allegations. If they want to proceed on the remaining cases, we're going to be ready to defend them, Greenberg told the Tribune. We'll figure something out how we're going to proceed. I think everyone needs to take a deep breath and then go from there. The U.S. Attorney's Office in both Chicago and Brooklyn declined to comment on what direction the federal cases might go in light of Monday's verdict. All right, so there's a lady standing outside the United States courthouse protesting. Oh, so obviously she is a supporter of R.Kelly protesters. Was a supporter of R.Kelly protesters outside during a break at the Brooklyn Federal Courthouse on September 27, 2021 in New York. All right, so I'm just going to stop right there. I'm going to stop right there. Now, this case has been going on for almost 30 years, since the 90s. And it kind of started off with Aaliyah, because Aaliyah was 15 years old at the time that R. Kelly had a relationship with her, or an alleged relationship, and they end up getting married, which turns out to be a cover-up. Then it went from Aaliyah to other women in his hometown and areas like that. Then it came down to Atlanta. So it was a lot that was going on over the years. So all these cases that you see is caught up. However, it was New York federal court that was able to prosecute him and found him guilty. Now he got to go to Minnesota. He got to go to Chicago. But let's talk about the Aaliyah situation for a moment. This is my conspiracy. Okay, this is my theory. I think that somebody knew in Aaliyah's family that there was some type of sexual relation going on between her and R. Kelly. And I think somebody in the family was desperate enough to send her over to Kelly because they knew that she was going to become a star. Now, Aaliyah came out in 1993. Okay. So I believe it was Aaliyah's uncle that introduced her to R. Kelly. R. Kelly been out since 1989. He started out with Public Announcement. That's where he started. He started out with the group Public Announcement. Okay. So he did a lot of production in the group. And he produced Aaliyah's first album. All them songs that you hear, it was produced by R. Kelly. It was produced by him. He produced all those songs on her first album. Now, I ain't gonna lie, that was the best album she had. But I don't know if you guys ever took a notice and paid attention to the album cover, right? Aaliyah was in the front, and then in the background, way in the far back, it's kind of blurry. You see R. Kelly. So that should have gave some sign right there that there was something going on. And I honestly think that her family gave her over because they saw a lottery ticket. They saw a lottery ticket. They saw that this girl was going to make a come up and she was going to get everybody paid. And R. Kelly was supposed to be her so-called mentor. He was supposed to be the one to guide her through the music business, but that's not what it was. That's not what it was. But that was somewhere somebody had gave a testimony that the reason why he married Aaliyah because she was pregnant. And in order for her to get an abortion, she would have to go through the process of being married. So just so they could legalize her abortion without her parents' consent. Then you see the patterns, okay? But the only difference is the other women that was involved with R. Kelly, they didn't get that celebrity status like Aaliyah did. So I believe that the parents also, not only the family of Aaliyah, but I also believe the parents of these women and these young girls, they also need to be they need to be put on trial. They need to be questioned. Especially Jocelyn Savage. Jocelyn Jocelyn Savage, the young lady um who did not come home to her parent, and she was on TMZ. And TMZ knows something that was going on. When they asked her a certain question, she kind of just hurried up and got off of there. So I think that her parents need to be put on trial, her father in particularly, because you gave your daughter over to a man that you knew that was a pedophile, that you knew he had a case, but you did not care because you want your daughter to make a come up. And you basically was pimping your daughter. You was pimping your daughter in order for her to get some money. That's the way I see it. But I ain't going to spend too much time just giving my views and opinion. I want to get into the sociological perspective of this. So let's go into sociology. What is sociology? This is why we have to deal with it from a sociological standpoint. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to put up what sociology is. And you're going to see why I'm using this. Now, I have done it before, but I'm going to do it again. So sociology is a social science that focuses on society, human social behavior, patterns of social relationship, social interaction, and an aspect of culture associated with everyday life. It uses various methods of empirical investigation and critical analysis to develop a body of knowledge about social order and social change. While some sociologists conduct research that may be applied directly to social policy and welfare, others focus primarily on refining the theoretical understanding of social processes. Subject matters can range from micro-level analysis of society, of individual interaction and agency, to macro-level analysis of system and social structure. All right. So it focused on a lot of areas of social stratification, social class, social mobility, religion, secularization, law, sexuality, gender, and deviance. And it also deals with crimes too. All right, so now let's go down to look at the theoretical traditions. All right, theoretical tradition. So there is three sociological perspectives. One is functionalism, or the functionalist theory. The second is the conflict theory. And the third one is symbolic interaction theory. All right, so let me go ahead and use one of my old textbooks from college. Yeah, I do. I keep old stuff around. So let's look at the functionalist perspective. All right, so the functionalist perspective within society traces its root to the work of Emile Durkheim. Although he was not the first structural functionalist, his version of functionalism is still popular amongst many sociologists. We have already, okay, Durkheim assumed that society, like a plant or animal, consists of systems that act together to maintain the life of the organism. Contemporary functionalists no longer rely on this assumption, but they do say that the parts of a social system work together to maintain the cohesion of the system. All right. So when you function, right, you're bringing some type of cohesion. You're bringing some type of way of adjustment to a society. And then it goes on to say, and let's go down. It says, functionalist theories also assume that society maintains itself in a state of equilibrium that permits it to operate effectively. The equilibrium may upset, however, for any number of reasons. External circumstances such as war, trade imbalance, or catastrophes of nature can cause the equilibrium to flatter and then to fail entirely. And then also it says the functionalist theorists further believe that societal cohesion derived from consensus and common values. Then it goes down to talk about functions. Functions are actions that have positive consequences for the social system, and defunctions are actions that have negative consequences for the social system. Manifest function are those intent or recognized by others, whereas latent functions are unintended. So basically, with the functionalist perspective, you're dealing with the pros and the cons of society. That's just to sum it up. The way that people function in society and how they operate, it comes with a pro, it comes with the cons. So now let's look at the conflict perspective. In contrast to functionalists, conflict theories or conflict theorists view society as a collection of parts held together by social power. The ability to control the power, the ability to control the behavior of others against their will. To conflict theorists, power is the tool that enables some groups to dominate others. Dominance in turn set in motion the potential for conflict between those who receive the benefits of power and those who do not. For example, white have historically dominated non-whites, men have dominated women. In each case, the dominant group has used its power to gain benefits at the expense of the subordinate group. All right, so with the conflict theory, there's a conflicting thing of power. So you have the opposing group and you have the supporting group. Just think of it as offense and defense. What does the offense do? The offense is going to go and execute power, right? And the defense is going to fight against that power structure and to preserve, just to protect its territory or preserve the power that is already there. I'm getting somewhere. Just be patient with me. Symbolic interaction perspective. The third major perspective in sociology, symbolic interaction, emphasizes the symbolic nature of human interaction. Formally, symbolic interaction is a theory based on the idea that individuals construct the nature of their social world through social interaction. The theory assumes that social life is possible only because humans can communicate through symbols. A symbol is something that stands for something else, as when the motion of an upturned thumb signifies all right, or when a blinking yellow light signifies caution. Okay, and where do they come from with this? So the symbolic interaction is further stressed. As a matter of fact, before I go there, right here it says language can be regarded as a set of symbols that, when structured into a grammar, convey meanings that vary in complexity and subtlety. In short, symbolic interaction is assumed that all human communication takes place through the perception and interception of symbols. Symbolic interactionists further stress the importance of how we define a situation. A behavior that is appropriate in one situation may not be appropriate in another situation. Okay. And lastly, symbolic interactionists emphasize that we do not respond to the real world. Instead, we respond to the symbolic meanings we attach to the real world. It follows that if we define situation as real, they are real in their consequences. And that's very deep. Okay. So now let me bring all of this in together. Let me tie this in to the R. Kelly situation. So in this case, we have the functionalist theory. So the functionalists would look at the case of R. Kelly, the person himself. They would say, okay, in order for him to function as a celebrity, he would use his fame to bring about some form of control mechanism. So in order to keep his fame up and in order to stay relevant in the spotlight, right, he has to make himself appear as something greater than what he really is. So by him appearing to be something greater than what he is, right, he has a way of functioning. So he thought in order to keep things going, to keep things intact, he creates this cult-like community, this sex ring, just to keep it going, just to keep it as a part of his lifestyle. Okay? But here's the conflict theory. So you have those who look at R. Kelly, knowing who he is, based on what we see in the media, based on his music. They say, well, R. Kelly could not be guilty of those crimes. R. Kelly could not have done anything wrong. Those females or those individuals around him, they're lying on him. There's no way R. Kelly could have did something like that. They lying. They making up stuff about R. Kelly. Knowing that they don't know anything about this man 9 times out of 10. Or let's just say they only know him, if they do know him personally, they only know him based on what they saw, based on what he presented to them. As far as his character is concerned. So as far as his character is concerned, what he presents to the people, that's how they see him. They feel like, okay, this man has never done this around me. I never seen this, so I don't believe he did it. But somebody else who been around him, they saw a totally different person. They didn't see the R&B singer. They didn't see somebody that was a celebrity. They saw somebody that was very controlling and manipulative. So, and then you have those who believe that he actually did it because based on their experience or based on the fact that they're not looking at R. Kelly as a symbolic figure. They looking at the fact that he's a human and he's going to more than likely make mistakes, or he's going to make decisions where that's going to put people's lives in jeopardy. So you got the supporting group that says R. Kelly is innocent. He's not guilty of any crime. But then you have the opposing group that says he is guilty, and they agree with the verdict. And the symbolic interaction, of course, I kind of just said what the symbolic interaction is. Basically, R. Kelly, based on the label that he's been given, he's a celebrity. He's an R&B singer. He's a celebrity. He's an R&B singer. That's the symbolic interaction. So because of his status, he is honored as a higher figure. He is recognized as a higher figure. But take away the R&B singer, take away a celebrity, take away the fame, R. Kelly would just be an average Joe out here in the streets. He will be a nobody. but he became a nobody. He became somebody because of the media recognition, because of what the media recognized him as. They classify him as a celebrity. Why? Because he's an R&B singer and he's a producer and songwriter, and he has sold millions of records. So he's known for working with multiple artists, people from not just public announcement, but Ronald Isley, Kelly Price, Selena Johnson, Usher, Fat Joe, Ja Rule, Marcus Houston, Celine Dion. It's a long list. He has known to produce some of everybody's favorite song because he has one of the great productions. And then there are people that will argue that, well, yeah, R. Kelly might be guilty, but guess what? I'm not going to stop listening to his music just because he's guilty. You got to separate the artist from the person. And well, that sounds, yeah, but that's kind of hard to do. It's kind of hard to separate the artist from the person when the artist and the person is the same individual. So sometimes that can be very hard to do. But let's take a trip back real fast. There has been many stories regarding to R. Kelly's life. R. Kelly grew up in a very rough environment in Chicago. He grew up by a single mother, and it was said to be that while he was growing up, there was people in his family that allegedly molested him, allegedly raped him. Now, that's not a justification to rape somebody else, but what you see is the pathology, because nobody went and got R. Kelly any help, or he didn't know who to turn to when he was younger to say, hey, somebody sexually violated me, somebody touched me. So he carried that sickness over to somebody else's kids. But he did it behind the scene. But in the front, in the spotlight, he appeared to be this person that of multiple characters. I mean, he go from making songs about R&B, making songs about love, to talking about being a thug, being a player, to making gospel music, talking about he loved God and this, that, the other. So it's like you trying to figure out, well, what is R. Kelly gonna be today? R. Kelly gonna be this love a man R&B singer? R. Kelly is gonna be this thug hood nigga type? Or R. Kelly is going to be this holy sanctified individuals? Where is he going to stand? So that kind of brought some confusion on certain people, because it's like, okay, you're making a song about this. Then next minute you make a song about this. Then you put on the character of this person. What you gonna be? What you gonna be? But I mean, but that's the thing, you know, when you're in those type of spotlight, you're going to put on a character front. You're going to put on a facade just to be appealing to the mass audience. And that's what he was doing. But I go back to what I was saying before. We may appear to be sane, but deep down, we're sick. And R. Kelly is sick. And maybe somebody tried to get R. Kelly some help, but he didn't want no help because he felt like he didn't need any help. Kareem Marshall said they went to Lifetime first. Well, this case been going on way before Lifetime even came out. This case been going, this whole child molestation, child rape, all of this been going on since the 90s, throughout his career. It's been going on, but it just took a long time for it to catch up into the spotlight. It took a long time for it to come to a final verdict, okay, to get to the federal courts. So cases like this, especially when you're dealing with rape, it takes a long time. to actually get a trial and to convict the person of a crime, because you got to make sure you have all the conclusive evidence. You got to make sure you have the DNA. You got to make sure that you have the witnesses that was around the victims and the suspect or defendant. You got to have all the evidence combined together. Am I saying that R. Kelly is guilty? Yes. I'm gonna put it out there. He's been guilty in my eye. He's been guilty. So now let me go ahead and show you guys another article. Let's look at the situation about black women, how they respond to his conviction. All right. It says, how the black women around R. Kelly case feel about his conviction. The case could represent a turning point for the Me Too movement, which some felt had centered on crimes against white women. All right. So Stephanie Edwards, a singer known as Sparkle, testified at R. Kelly's 2008 trial. She said that his acquittal then affected her view of the Me Too movement a decade later. And if you guys don't know who Sparkle is, Sparkle did the song with R. Kelly called "You Better Be Careful." One of the best songs they ever collaborated. It was one of the best songs. The song was about domestic violence, relationship problems, and it was about a woman that was battered and a man that was unsatisfied, angry, and they could not be in a relationship together. So they realized that they were not really meant for each other, and so she went on with her life, and he ended up being by himself. And then you'll see the next video that he did a song called "When a Woman Fed Up." That's the part 2 of the song that he did with Sparkle. So R. Kelly did tell some great stories in his songs. And that happened to be one of the best songs out there. Just lyrically, if you just listen to the lyrics. And the part that they say, if the shoe fits, then wear it, boy. If the shoes fits, then wear it, girl. The song is very lyrical. So if you guys don't know that song, maybe y'all need to go back and listen to it just so you play on repeat and hear what the lyrics is, and yeah, go from there. So that's who Sparkle is. Sparkle is Stephanie Edwards. All right, so it says the woman was taking a nap when her phone began buzzing and buzzing and buzzing. A verdict had been reached in the trial of R. Kelly, one of the biggest names in the R&B music. 2 weeks earlier, the woman had testified under a pseudonym, Angela, at Mr. Kelly's trial, telling jurors that the singer began sexually abusing her when she was underage. Her accusations were not part of the charges of which Mr. Kelly was convicted, but 30 years after Mr. Kelly began abusing her, her testimony helped convict him. When I heard guilty, I immediately burst into tears. She said, I cried for a while. She said she had watched the stories of other women who looked like her be brushed aside before. Black women are overlooked so often because people say, well, you dress this way, you look that way, you acted that way, you put yourself in that situation, she said. But this time, the response was unfamiliar. Not only did they see us, did they hear us? They believed us, said the woman who agreed to be identified using her trial pseudonym. So she didn't want to use her real name. It says, Mr. Kelly's case has been widely viewed as a crucial moment for the Me Too movement, serving as the first high-profile trial since the national reckoning around sexual misconduct to feature a powerful man whose victims were primarily Black women. In the days and weeks that preceded the jury's verdict, many observers say they fear the stories from a group of Black accusers, no matter how harrowing might be dismissed. Instead, Mr. Kelly's conviction on Monday was viewed by many as powerful validation of the accounts of both those who took the stand against him and others whose stories have never been made public. For years, I was trolled for speaking out about the abuse that I suffered at the hands of that predator. People called me a liar and said I had no proof. Geronda Pace, who became the first woman to ever testify against Mr. Kelly at criminal trial, wrote on Instagram after the verdict, I'm happy to finally close this chapter of my life. But whether Mr. Kelly's trial and conviction represent a broader shift towards better treatment of Black victims of sexual abuse is still unknown. All right, then it goes on to say, this moment will go one of two ways, said Mickey Kendall, an author from Chicago who has written about feminism and intersectionality. Either we will finally say that Black women and girls deserve to be protected, or we're going to say again, as we have, this idea that Black girls are unrapeable because of their skin color. She added, we're making a choice here in the Me Too movement. The issue of whose stories are prioritized has been central in the recent activism efforts. When Tarana Burke, a Black woman, started the original iteration of Me Too around 2007, she hoped to use the phrase to raise awareness of sexual assault and connect victims to resources. But observers noted that the effort had not been supported by prominent white feminists. Well, of course, of course, these white feminists ain't gonna. Let me not go there. But anyways, and when the actress Alana Milano tweeted the same words a decade later, it spurred concern that Black women would be left out of the story. Yeah, of course, the Me Too movement was not going to be supported by the white feminists. If anybody know about the history of the white feminists, they didn't really support Black women like that anyhow. So that shouldn't even be a surprise. That shouldn't even be a surprise. But, let's cut the stereotype and narrative that because you dress a certain way, that you really ask for it. Nobody really asked to be raped. Nobody asked to be sexually violated. Now, what you would have to do as a person, be careful of your surroundings. Be mindful of your surrounding. Be mindful of the people that's right in front of you or beside you. You can't trust everybody. You can't think everybody is at your best interest. So there wouldn't be a blame on the victim for being raped. But at the same time, the victim will have to learn how to watch their surrounding. So you don't blame a person for the action of the other individual, but you gotta let the person know that they just need to be aware of what's going on around them. You have to bring awareness around you regardless how you may feel. Regardless whether it's somebody that's your best friend, whether it's somebody in your family, whether it's your colleagues at work, whether it's somebody that you're supposed to be in a relationship with, you always got to keep a close eye on your surrounding. You don't want to get caught slipping. You don't want to get caught not paying attention. Keep a close eye on your surrounding. Because you don't know what people are looking for. You don't know what's going across the individual's mind, what their main purpose is. You don't know exactly what they're going to do, what their next move. So always pay attention. Now, I want to kind of tie this up into not just R. Kelly, but many others. Let me tie this up into Polite situation. So as you guys know, that Polite has currently went on trial as well about a situation about a 14-year-old girl in Miami, Florida. So they gave him a $20,000 bond or something, and he has to go to a next trial around December, I believe. What do R. Kelly and Polite have in common? Well, I'll tell you what they both have in common. Their status, their fame, and their way of being able to manipulate and control people who are vulnerable to them or beneath them. So, but the only difference is R. Kelly is known in the mainstream. Polite is known in the Black community. He is known not only just in the Black community, but in the small circle of what we call the conscious community. So the conscious community is a small group compared to all the other groups out there. However, it's starting to gain a little bit more exposure because of certain celebrities who have interaction with certain people. But other than that, Polite is well known in what they would call the conscious community. And he's known through certain celebrities. But what they both have, they use their fame. They use their status as a way to gain power and leverage and control. So, which I'm going to go to my last point of this video. I'm going to use this book right here. And if you guys don't have this book, I recommend you guys to have these two books. So the first book is The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. And then here's another book that he read, which is called The Laws of Human Nature. Of course, you can't see it because the little paint came off of there, but let me flip it over on the side. The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to this book, okay? Because some of the stuff in this book will explain R. Kelly's character and many others who have done what R. Kelly has been convicted of. Okay, so let's go to law number 3, page 16. All right. Now, law number 3 is conceal your intentions. Conceal your intentions. Check this out. It says, judgment, keep people off balance and in the dark by never revealing the purpose behind your actions. If they have no clue what you are up to, they cannot prepare a defense. Guide them far enough down the wrong path, envelope them in enough smoke, and by the time they realize your intentions, it will be too late. That sounds like Polite. That sounds like Polite. Now, let me go ahead and read something. It says, keys to power. Most people are open books. They say what they feel, blurt out their opinions at every opportunity, and constantly reveal their plans and intention. They do this for several reasons. First, it is easy and natural to always want to talk about one's feelings and plan for the future. It takes effort to control your tongue and monitor what you reveal. Second, many believe that by being honest and open, they are winning people's heart and showing their good nature. They are greatly deluded. Honesty is actually a blunt instrument which bloodies more than it cuts. Your honesty is likely to offend people. It is much more prudent to tailor your words, telling people what they want to hear rather than the coarse and ugly truth of what you feel or think. Most important, by being unabashedly open, you make yourself so predictable and familiar that it is almost impossible to respect or fear you. And power will not accrue to a person who cannot inspire such emotions. So, R. Kelly over the years and Polite over the years have learned how to conceal their intention. They did not let the people who they were victimizing or people they were manipulating know what they were up to. Because if they would have let them be known, then it would have just instantly ruined their reputation. Although the case of R. Kelly been going on for some years, R. Kelly still was able to get away with taking advantage of other people by concealing his intentions. And although there was rumors about Polite, he was still able to get away with doing what he was doing, teaching bogus information to people to conceal his intentions. All right. And it says, if you yearn for power, quickly lay honesty aside and train yourself in the art of concealing your intentions. Master the art and you will always have the upper hand. Basic to an ability to conceal one's intentions is a simple truth about human nature. Our first instinct is to always trust appearance. We cannot go around doubting the reality of what we see and hear, constantly imagining that appearance conceal something else would exhaust and terrify us. This fact makes it relatively easy to conceal one's intentions. Simply dangle an object you seem to desire, a goal you seem to aim for in front of people's eyes, and they will take the appearance for reality. Once their eyes focus on the decoy, they will fail to notice what you are really up to. In seduction, set up conflicting signals such as desire and indifference, and you not only throw them off the scent, you inflame their desire to possess you. Does that not sound like pimping? That sounds like a technique that a pimp would use. This is a pimp technique. So, Polite, R.Kelly, they were using the techniques of concealing their intentions, just like a pimp. A pimp conceal their intention. They don't necessarily tell their hoes exactly what they're gonna do. They tell them that yes, it's about money, but they don't tell them everything. They don't reveal everything to them. All right. So let's see what else. What else I want to use? Okay, it's called Law 12, page 89. It says, use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. Judgment. One sincere and honest move would cost over dozens of dishonest ones. Open-hearted gesture of honesty and generosity bring down the guard of even the most suspicious people. Once your selective honesty opens a hole in their armor, you can deceive and manipulate them at will. A timely gift, a Trojan horse, will serve the same purpose. That's another thing. They use selective honesty. Anybody that want to gain social power, one of the key thing is use selective honesty. Don't be 100% honest. Because if you're being too honest, then eventually you're going to lose power. And here's another one. Play to people's fantasies, which is Law 32. Law 32 say play to people's fantasies. The truth is often avoided because it is ugly and unpleasant. Never appeal to truth and reality unless you are prepared for the anger that comes from disenchantment. Life is so harsh and distressing. Life is so harsh and distressing that people who can manufacture romance and conjure up fantasy are like oases in the desert. Everyone flocks to them. There is great power in tapping into the fantasies of the masses. That's R. Kelly. He played into people's fantasy. Why? Because of his fame, because of his recognition. So that's more so R. Kelly than Polite. I mean, yeah, Polite had played in quite a few women fantasies, but not up to the number of R. Kelly's. All right. So I won't go any further, but if you guys don't have this book, please, I recommend you guys get it. The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Very good book. Now let's look at the Laws of Human Nature book. Hold on. All right. So in the Laws of Human Nature book, it says, make them want to follow you. The law of fickleness. The law of fickleness. All right. It says, although styles of leadership change with the times, one constant remains. People are always oblivious about those in power. They want to be led, but also to feel free. They want to be protected and enjoy prosperity without making sacrifices. They both worship the king and want to kill him. When you are the leader of a group, people are continually prepared to turn on you the moment you seem weak or experience a setback. Do not succumb to the prejudice of the times, imagining that what you need to do to gain their loyalty is to seem to be their equal or their friend. People will doubt your strength, become suspicious of your motives, and respond with hidden contempt. Authority is the delicate art of creating the appearance of power, legitimacy, and fairness, while people getting to identify with you as a leader who is in their service. If you want to lead, you must master this art from early on in your life. Once you have gained people's trust, they will stand by you as their leader no matter the bad circumstances. And that goes for the supporters of R. Kelly and the supporters of Polite. That's what they doing. They have been deceived enough to where they will still stand by Polite and R. Kelly, regardless of what they have been accused of doing wrong. They gonna stand by them. Mhm. And it goes on to say, key to humans' nature. We humans like to believe that the emotions that we experience are simple and pure. We love certain people and hate others. We respect and admire this individual and have nothing but disdain for another. The truth is that this is almost never the case. It is a fundamental fact of human nature that our emotions are almost always ambivalent, rarely pure and simple. We can feel love and hostility at the same time, or admiration and envy. This oblivion or ambivalence began in our childhood and set the pattern for the rest of our lives. If our parents were relatively attentive and loving, we remember our childhood fondly as a golden period. What we conveniently forget is that even with such parents, we tended to feel resentful of our dependence on their love and care. In some cases, we felt smothered. We yearned to assert our willpower to show we could stand on our own. Feeling too dependent on their attention could open up tremendous anxieties about our vulnerability if they're gone. And so we inevitably felt some hostility and desire to disobey along with our affection. It says, if they were not kind and loving later in life, we resent them and can remember only their coldness and our present empathy or antipathy. But we forget that in our childhood we tend to gloss over their negative traits and find ways to love them, despise their treatment, and to somehow blame ourselves for not deserving their affection. Given the fact that we depended on them for our survival, to feel they truly did not care would have stirred up far too much anxiety, mixed with emotions of angers and frustration, were feeling of need and love. And that's the victims of R. Kelly. They want to, they had mixture of anger and frustration, right? And many of them want to feel like they were loved and needed, and they want some type of celebrity status. They figure if they give with somebody like R. Kelly, then they would have their come up and they would get their recognition. R. Kelly would love them back. R. Kelly would treat them very well, take them out on dates and all of these different things. But they didn't know R. Kelly's intention, but he knew what they wanted, but they didn't know what his intention was. What was his whole purpose until it was too late. Okay. And then in this book, it says reconnect to the masculine or feminine within you, the law of gender rigidity. All of us have masculine and feminine qualities. Some of this is genetic and some of it come from the profound influence of the parents of the opposite sex. But in the need to present a constant identity in society, we tend to repress these qualities over identifying with the masculine or feminine role expected of us, and we pay a full price. We pay a price for this. We lose valuable dimension to our character. Our thinking and ways of acting become rigid. Our relationships with members of the opposite sex suffer as we project onto them our own fantasies and hostilities. You must become aware of these lost masculine or feminine traits and slowly reconnect to them, unleashing creative powers in the process. You will become more fluid in your thinking. In bringing out the masculine or feminine undertone to your character, you will fascinate people by being authentically yourself. Do not play the expected gender role, but rather create the one that suits you. Mm. And then what it goes on to say, the keys to human nature. We humans like to believe that we are constant and mature and that we have reasonable control over our lives. We make decisions based on rational consideration and what will benefit us to the most. What we have free will. We know who we are, more or less. But in one particular aspect of life, these self-opinions are all easily shattered when we fall in love. When we in love, we become prey to emotions we cannot control. We make choices of partners we cannot rationally explain. And often these choices end up becoming being unfortunate. Many of us will have at least one successful relationship in our lives, but we will tend to have many more that were decidedly unsuccessful that ended unhappily. And often we repeat the same types of bad choices of partners as if compelled by some inner demon. And again, this comes from the laws of human nature. Yeah. Peace, brother born eternal Lord Allah. Shout out to you. So yeah, that's my assessment on the R. Kelly situation and the polite situation. So as you can see, I use the concept of sociology and incorporate the 48 laws of powers and the law of human nature to describe the behavior. The object of the game is the dominant and subordinate. All right. You have the dominant attitude. You have the subordinate attitude. So most of the time, men tend to feel like they have to be dominant and stay dominant. And how do they stay dominant? They take dominancy over the opposite sex, which is the women and the children, because that's how they feel like they can be able to gain some sense of control and power. But they don't realize that these things have long-term effect. So what you go about doing to earn your power and earning your respect as a man or as an individual can affect you in the long run. And what R. Kelly did in this case, it caught up with him. He thought he can get away with what he was doing for 30 years. That was sexual abuse and racketeering. But it caught up with him. Polite thought that he could get away with what he was doing, but he ended up going to court. So I encourage a lot of people to keep an eye out on people like the R. Kellys and the Polites. And we got these people in our families. We got these people in our neighborhoods. We got these people at our community events. We got these type of people at work. You might not even know because you may not be in contact with them all the time, but they're around. And this is one of the reasons why I don't put everything past anyone, because of learning about humans' behavior and human desire. Once you learn these things, you can't always put anything past everybody. You have to be skeptical. You have to keep a close eye. You have to be able to watch every person's every mood. You have to see the signs. If the signs are there, you have to pay attention to those signs. If there's red flags, follow those red flags. Yep. So, with that being said, that's all I have for tonight. All right. Thank you guys for watching. For those of you that have been watching on here, thank you for subscribing to my channel, checking out the content, sharing my videos. I really appreciate that so much. So until next time, you guys take it easy. Please be safe. Peace and power, elevation be to all of you. This your girl, Tiffany. And that's all for my discussion tonight. And that's my assessment. Deuces. All right.